Hi, beautiful people. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Steve. Welcome if you're new. Today, we're going to talk about a comment that I received from a new viewer. She has brought up quite a few important points that I think are representative of a popular school of thoughts on China among the Chinese community, including Western educated Chinese and also Westerners. And I like that she approached me in a very respectful manner, even though we hold very different opinions on social events in China and Chinese issues in general. I am very happy to have discussions with people that only attack each other's arguments rather than characters. So let me start with reading her message and then give my thoughts and further reasonings according to each point she brought up. The message starts with, "Hi Dee, my life experience is opposite to yours, whereas I spent my young years in the West and 4 years in Taiwan. And the adult life in China, 2012 to 2016, 2020 to now, coming to China every year to visit my dad. Although I agree with the Western worshiping culture China had and still have, it is slowly diminishing after the pandemic hit. I don't mean to debunk you or anything. I just want to give you a more accurate view on what's going on in China currently, so your videos can be more up to date of higher quality. On your point of boosting their ego, I don't completely agree, as they might have some truth to it. I see it more as they wanting to encourage young people in China to learn these types of sports. This refers to the comment that I received asking why the Chinese government is recruiting so many foreign athletes to compete for the Chinese national team. My boyfriend is also a Chinese-born athlete. He is not good enough to compete in the Olympics, but he is always complaining on how sports is not a good career choice in China. And from his point of view is that the country now is doing well economically, so the government can start encouraging young people to chase other kinds of dreams, such as sports, and receive the government support. By ethnically Chinese athletes wanting to come back and represent China is good incentive to people to want to pursue similar dreams. I do agree with you with the narrative of China is strong now, though I just don't see it as a negative thing. If your country is strong, so is your people becoming strong. The country is the backbone of the society, which is the backbone of a family, which is the backbone to each individual. That's just my point of view. Would love to have a friendly discussion. All right, so let's go to her first point. Before I start, I saw that this viewer came to China to visit her dad every year. So I'm not quite sure whether she actually works in China full-time or part-time, and whether she holds a Chinese passport, because that makes a huge difference. If you hold a foreign passport, then the places you can go can be severely limited. So your view on China can be also restricted, because if you go to fifth tier, fourth tier cities that are basically collapsing right now, you won't even be able to find a hotel that accepts foreigners. With your foreign passport, you simply cannot check in. So I would like some clarifications on that, but just throw it out there. If you hold a foreign passport, you probably are only shown a part of China that the government wants you to see, like Beijing, Shanghai. I agree that growing up in Beijing, I've seen that place improve tremendously, and the streets have become cleaner. There are a lot of tall skyscrapers being built, and even the efficiencies of governments, Beijing government has improved. So I'll give you that, but I'm gonna discuss a little further on the issues that I also saw. So now let's go to your first point. The Western worshiping culture in China has been diminishing after the pandemic. You might agree with it because you are seeing a lot of fanatical nationalism, patriotism among the Chinese. When you ask them, they will tell you that China is stronger and better than the West, and the Chinese government handles the pandemic so much better than all the other foreign governments. And I disagree with it because I think the foreign worshiping culture just went from overt to covert. If you think about human emotions, what is the opposite emotion to love or worship? It is not hate, it is apathy. If somebody is truly apathetic to certain issues, they wouldn't go out of their way to prove others wrong about this issue. They just are nonchalant about it. And also, if you think about a person that has very high self-esteem and know who they are very secure of themselves, then you wouldn't see them go out of their way to flaunt their wealth or material goods so that they could feel better about themselves and make others feel small. I think you said yourself you didn't grow up in China and probably you didn't receive education in the Chinese public schools. So when I was in Chinese public schools, ever since I was young, I was taught the evil of the Western countries. The Western bullies invade China, set fire on the emperor's garden, 八国联军火烧圆明园, all those historical events, and that they bullied the Chinese, and then we learned about the Opium War to the fullest extent, and then how the Japanese were killing Chinese so brutally. We were shown very gory, very bloody video footages when we were even in elementary school. So even when I was younger, I had a seed of hatred planted in my mind. So even I was having this idea that I had to prove to the West that our Chinese people are much stronger right now. We're no longer the Eastern wicked man, 东亚病夫, and we're so much smarter and so much stronger, so much better right now, even more superior than the West. Even before I came to the US, my parents were telling me that the West actually has always been looking down on China and therefore the Chinese. So you have to prove to them that you're better now and that China is strong. You have to tell the good Chinese story, China story. But then it wasn't until I actually came to the West that I found out that people don't really care too much about your country. On a personal level, maybe it has worsened with the tension growing between the China and America, but at least for me, with my personal experience, people care more about who you are as a person and how you treat others than where you come from. If you are a jerk to people who have nothing to do with you, then of course they're going to look down on you because you're a piece of shit. But if you treat others with respect, most people just respond to you with the same energy. It's like a mirror. And there are certainly like racist and xenophobic people that will insult you simply because who you are and where you're from, but that reflects more about who they are rather than where you come from and who you are. So they're gonna be shit to anybody that they have encountered with, not just you. Just speaking from a general encounter about the general population in the West, I truly think, at least in America, from my own experience, I think who I am, what I do with my life, how I treat others, has more to do with how they perceive me as a person rather than that I'm from China. Back to the Western worshiping culture, I think Chinese people don't understand the nuance between learning from the West and thinking the West is superior no matter what. So the first one, so I came to the US to study teaching English as a second language because it is the birthplace of the modern SLA theory, second language acquisition. And I read Stephen Krashen and Noam Chomsky's research and articles, and I was utterly fascinated by their contributions to the language learning community. That's why I wanted to get closer to the birthplace of these theories and learn about it. And it turned out that I made the right choice in terms of learning about language teaching, language learning. Now I am more knowledgeable in the area. Therefore, I am a better language teacher than if I had never come to the US and learned about these theories. And then I wouldn't call this Western worshiping, but Chinese people now are calling my choice of coming to America to study a theory that is more matured as Western worshiping. And then I think that is just a very dangerous thing, because once you start having this projection of inferiority complex and then let it cloud your curiosity for the unknown and your willingness to learn from others who know better. It's a dangerous sign. It's a signal that your environment is on a downward trend. And again, I think the day I would call China stops being foreign worshipping is when China doesn't really care who's better. It only focuses on making its own people better rather than convincing foreigners or other countries that China is superior. And also, there's a difference between coming to a country because it's stronger and versus coming to a country that is weaker simply because they are paying you. So if China is truly strong now and China is not Western worshipping anymore, then these foreign athletes would come to China voluntarily because China has the better team and these foreigners want to be a part of that, rather than China's team is weaker and they're stronger, but they came here because they get paid more. So these are two completely different concepts. So I guess that corresponds to your second point a little bit, because you said by ethnically Chinese athletes wanting to come back and represent China, it's good incentive to young people in China to pursue similar dreams. We have to figure out what's the cause and what's the effect, because all of what you said was based under the premise that this top-down system actually is what's working. But from my own perspective and my own experience, including also your boyfriend's experience, this top-down model doesn't always work in reality, because the problem isn't that Chinese people aren't interested in doing sports, or that there aren't enough Chinese people talented or interested enough in doing sports. It's actually they don't see actual benefits for them to do sports on a personal level, because there aren't enough scholarships in Chinese higher ed institutions to support young kids to pursue this dream, or talented young kids to do this dream. Also, a lot of athletes in China are actually from rural China, and they don't have enough money to do this professionally unless they have fundings. But then there aren't enough funding sources, because China doesn't even allow NGO, nonprofits. It has to be government approved. So there's very little incentive for Chinese people to do it professionally because of how the system is set up. Not because not enough Chinese people are interested in sports. I also used to do sports professionally when I was younger, but then had to quit, first because of an injury, and second because my parents knew there's no future for me to go this route. And I'm pretty sure your boyfriend knows about it very well as well. And that's why he had to pursue a master's in the West. So to deal with the problem with sports in China, recruiting foreign athletes is only making you look good on the surface, but it's not even touching the root cause. I would rather seeing China setting up all these sports scholarships in all the high schools, middle schools, and providing these different various sources and funding sources to economically disadvantaged athletes so that they can continue with their dream, not just so that we can be perceived as better national teams by the foreigners on these Olympic events. It has nothing to do with normal athletes in everyday life. So that's how I see this issue, as somebody who once had a dream in sports but then had to quit. So the final thing you said, China is so strong now and you don't see it as a negative thing. This goes back to the top-down system that I talked about. From what you said, I think you believe that the government comes before the people. But to me, I have to respectfully disagree, because I know for a fact that the government is not a person. It's not an ideology. It's simply an objective institution that collects tax money and human resources from its own people so that it can actually serve various social services, including also like military defense, like national defense, so it doesn't get invaded by foreign nationals. And that's why I think the government is not the backbone of the people. The people are the backbone of a government. So that's again like the difference in understanding this logic. To me, I think the government should be an utter servant to the people, as I was told by the Chinese government, because even Mao Zedong himself, he said 为人民服务, serving its own people. And that is actually, I agree, the essence of a good government. But just because somebody says something doesn't mean they'll do it. My first toxic ex was a very classic narcissistic, manipulative person. And she told me she actually cares a lot about me. And she said that I am a very special person to her. However, she still cheated on me and used my money to spend on the third person. So again, like you have to understand what's words and what's actually actions and reality. But as a person who has lived through that system for the majority of my life, I'm 24 now and I have spent my first 22 years in China. I would say this, I don't really care whether the government is strong enough. I just care how well my family is doing and how well my loved ones are doing and how well I do in that society and how accepted I can be by that society, even just by being me. Whether the society will accept me, even if I am not a renowned scientist, I'm not a gold medalist in Olympics, if I'm not a super wealthy elite, if I'm just a normal citizen, am I able to be accepted and welcomed in a society and also just have my own space without being disturbed? That's what I care about, and being able to speak my mind. And there's another thing I have to say. If there's no freedom of criticism, then the remaining compliments mean nothing. So if you are living in a society that doesn't even allow criticism, then the compliments you're seeing for that country basically to me are useless. So that's my thought on this whole issue. And I think it's like the fundamental difference in life philosophy that we have. And it's totally fine because in the society that I'm living in right now, this is something that's perceived as totally okay. If you have disagreements with me ideologically wise, and also the way you have this civil discussion is also a product of the Western education. And I had another Chinese born and raised person, Chinese educated person who attacked me because we had different opinions and saying that I am a whitewashed banana person. And my experience in China didn't count. Like they just discredited my whole experience as a person, as a real person living in China. And that's the results of the radical patriotism that they're teaching kids nowadays in China. And that's where I have a lot of issues with. This is truly not an attack on anybody's character, but rather my true honest opinion on China issues and also what I have come to learn in life and the life philosophy that I possess right now. And I'm very happy to see people like you that are willing to hear different opinions and that welcome challenges and thoughts. And thank you again, this viewer, for providing this topic. And I hope to hear more from you and others. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.